Eleanor stood in the kitchen, carefully basting a golden brown chicken. The smell of rosemary and garlic filled the house, bringing a warm, comforting feeling. She glanced at the clock on the wall. Maverick would be home in a few hours. A smile spread across her face. It had been almost 6 months since she last saw her son, and she wanted everything to be perfect. "Waylon, can you come help me for a second?" Eleanor called out to her husband, who was lounging in the living room. She heard the muffled sound of the football game he was watching, and a reluctant groan as he got up. Waylon walked into the kitchen, looking slightly annoyed. "What is it?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light but failing. "I just need you to stir the gravy while I check on the dessert," she said, handing him a wooden spoon. Waylon took the spoon and started stirring, though his eyes kept drifting back toward the living room. "You really go all out for him, don't you?" he muttered. Eleanor paused, looking at him. "Of course I do. It's not every day we get to see Maverick. I want everything to be special." Waylon sighed. "Yeah, I get it. You don't need to overdo it." Eleanor smiled softly, trying to ease the tension. "I know you think I fuss too much, but it makes me happy. And I know it makes Maverick happy too." Waylon nodded, though his expression remained distant. "Yeah, all right." Eleanor turned back to her work, rolling out dough for an apple pie. As she worked, her thoughts drifted to Maverick. She remembered his childhood, the way he used to run around the backyard, his laughter filling the air. Those were simpler times. Now, he was all grown up, studying hard and working even harder. She was so proud of him. "The gravy's done," Waylon said, snapping her out of her reverie. "Thanks, honey. Can you set the table for me?" Eleanor asked, knowing he needed to feel involved, even if just a little. Waylon hesitated but then nodded. "Sure, I can do that." As Waylon left the kitchen, Eleanor's mind wandered back to the preparations. She checked the mashed potatoes, making sure they were creamy and smooth, just the way Maverick liked them. She sprinkled a bit more cinnamon into the apple pie filling, remembering how Maverick always said it was his favorite part. Suddenly, the phone rang. Eleanor wiped her hands on her apron and picked it up. "Hello." "Mum." "It's me." Maverick, came the familiar voice on the other end. Eleanor's face lit up. "Maverick. How's my favorite guy?" "I'm good, Mum. Just wanted to let you know I'm on my way. Should be there in about an hour." "That's wonderful. Everything's ready here. Can't wait to see you." "Same here, Mum. I miss you." Eleanor's heart swelled with love. "I miss you too, sweetheart. Drive safe, okay?" "Will do. See you soon." As she hung up the phone, Eleanor felt a flutter of excitement. She put the finishing touches on the pie and placed it in the oven. The house was ready, the food was ready, and she was ready. She could hardly wait to wrap her arms around her son and hear all about his life in Sacramento. Eleanor stepped into the living room where Waylon was setting the table. "Maverick just called. He's on his way." Waylon looked up and forced a smile. "That's great, Elle. It'll be good to have him home." Eleanor nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and a slight tension in the air. She pushed it aside, focusing on the joy of the moment. Tonight was about family, and nothing was going to spoil it. Eleanor was just placing the freshly baked apple pie on the cooling rack when the doorbell rang. She glanced at the clock. It was a bit early for Maverick to be arriving. Wiping her hands on a towel, she walked to the front door. Curious about who could be visiting at this hour. She opened the door to find a young woman standing on the porch, her face flushed and eyes wide with urgency. The woman looked like she had rushed to get there, her hair slightly disheveled and her breathing uneven. "Can I help you?" Eleanor asked, a bit taken aback by the stranger's sudden appearance. "I'm Audrey," the young woman said quickly. "I need to talk to you about Waylon. It's really important." Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. She stepped back, allowing Audrey to enter. "Come in," she said, trying to keep her voice calm despite the anxiety rising in her chest. They walked into the living room, where Waylon had just finished setting the table. He looked up, surprised to see the stranger with Eleanor. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone edged with suspicion. "This is Audrey," Eleanor said, her voice steady but her mind racing. "She says she needs to talk to us about something important." Waylon's face turned pale. He dropped the fork he was holding, the clattering sound echoing in the silence. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice shaking slightly. Audrey took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving Waylon's. "I couldn't keep this secret any longer. Waylon and I have been seeing each other for over a year." Eleanor felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under her. She clutched the back of a chair for support, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. What she whispered, her voice barely audible. Audrey continued, her voice trembling. "Waylon told me you were terminally ill. He said he couldn't leave you because you didn't have much time left. But I found out it's not true. You're not sick." Eleanor's head spun. She turned to Waylon, searching his face for some sign that this was a terrible mistake, a misunderstanding. But all she saw was guilt and fear. "Is this true, Waylon?" she asked, her voice stronger now, laced with anger. Waylon looked down, unable to meet her eyes. "Eleanor, I can explain," he started, but she cut him off. "Explain? How do you explain something like this?" Eleanor's voice rose, her composure slipping. "You lied to me, to her, about something so serious." Audrey stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I had no idea he was lying. I thought you were really sick." Eleanor took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside her. "Thank you for telling me, Audrey. You did the right thing." Audrey nodded, wiping her tears. "I should go. I'm really sorry." Eleanor watched as Audrey left, closing the door behind her. She turned to Waylon, her eyes blazing with anger and hurt. "How could you do this to me? To us?" Waylon tried to reach for her, but she stepped back. "Eleanor, please. I never wanted to hurt you. It just got out of hand." "Got out of hand," Eleanor repeated, her voice incredulous. "You lied about me being terminally ill to carry on an affair. How could you think that's okay?" Waylon ran his hands through his hair, looking desperate. "I was stupid, okay? I made a mistake. But I love you, Eleanor. I never stopped loving you." Eleanor shook her head, tears finally spilling over. "Love. This isn't love, Waylon. This is betrayal. And I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this." She turned and walked away, needing space to think, to breathe. Waylon called after her, but she didn't stop. She needed to process what had just happened, to figure out how to move forward from this devastating revelation. As she walked into the kitchen, the smell of the apple pie, once so comforting, now felt like a cruel reminder of the life she thought she had. Eleanor leaned against the counter, trying to steady herself. She had a lot to think about, and she needed to be strong. For herself, and for Maverick, who would be home any minute now. Eleanor stood in the kitchen, trying to steady her racing heart. The confrontation with Waylon and Audrey's shocking revelation left her reeling. She took a deep breath and turned to face Waylon, who was standing in the doorway, his face a mixture of guilt and fear. "Waylon, we need to talk," Eleanor said, her voice firmer now. She gestured for him to follow her into the living room. They sat down, the tension between them palpable. "Eleanor," Waylon began, but she cut him off. "Why?" Eleanor demanded, her eyes searching his face. "Why would you lie about something so serious? Why would you do this to me?" Waylon sighed heavily, rubbing his face with his hands. "It started as a mistake, Eleanor. I met Audrey at a conference. We just clicked, and before I knew it, things got out of hand." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "And you thought it was okay to tell her I was dying? To use me as an excuse to carry on your affair?" Waylon shook his head. "No, I never meant for it to go this far. At first it was just a small lie to keep things from getting complicated. But then it spiraled out of control. I didn't know how to stop it." Eleanor felt a mix of anger and disbelief. A small lie? Do you hear yourself, Waylon? You told another woman that your wife was terminally ill. That's not a small lie, that's a huge, cruel deception. Waylon's eyes filled with tears. I know, Eleanor. I know I messed up. I was scared of losing both of you. Eleanor stood up, unable to sit still any longer. She paced the room, trying to make sense of the mess her life had become. So, you decided to live a double life? To keep us both in the dark? Did you ever plan to tell me the truth? Waylon's silence spoke volumes. Eleanor stopped pacing and faced him, her voice trembling with emotion. Did you ever think about how this would affect me? How it would hurt me? Waylon finally looked up, his face etched with regret. I was selfish, Eleanor. I wasn't thinking about you or Audrey. I was only thinking about myself and what I wanted. Eleanor felt a wave of sadness wash over her. The man she thought she knew, the man she loved, had betrayed her in the worst possible way. I trusted you, Waylon. I believed in you. And you shattered that trust. Waylon reached out, but Eleanor stepped back. Please, Eleanor. Let me make it up to you. I'll do anything. Eleanor shook her head, her resolve hardening. I don't know if there's anything you can do, Waylon. This isn't something that can be fixed with an apology. At that moment, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke the tense silence. Maverick was home. Eleanor took a deep breath, forcing herself to regain her composure. We'll deal with this later. Right now, I need to focus on our son. Waylon nodded, looking defeated. Okay, Eleanor. I understand. Eleanor walked to the front door, opening it just as Maverick stepped onto the porch. His face lit up when he saw her. Mom. Maverick, Eleanor exclaimed, pulling him into a tight hug. She held onto him for a moment longer than usual, drawing strength from his presence. I'm so glad you're home. Maverick smiled, his eyes full of warmth. Me too, Mum. I've missed you. Eleanor glanced back at Waylon, who was watching them with a pained expression. She knew they had a lot to work through, but for now she needed to focus on the positive. She turned back to Maverick, forcing a smile. Come on in. Dinner's ready, and I've made all your favourites. As they walked into the house, Eleanor felt a flicker of hope. Despite the turmoil in her marriage, she still had her son, and that was something worth holding on to. She would take it one step at a time, finding strength in the love and support of her family. After dinner, Maverick settled into the living room to catch up with his parents. Eleanor and Waylon tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, but the tension was thick in the air. Eleanor's mind kept replaying the earlier confrontation, and she knew she couldn't keep her emotions bottled up much longer. Maverick, why don't you go ahead and get some rest? Eleanor suggested gently. You must be tired from the drive. Maverick glanced at his mother, sensing something off. Are you sure, Mum? I can stay up a bit longer. No, really, she insisted, managing a smile. We'll have plenty of time to catch up tomorrow. Reluctantly, Maverick agreed. All right, if you say so. Good night, Mum. Good night, Dad. Good night, son, Waylon replied, his voice strained. Eleanor waited until Maverick was out of earshot before turning to Waylon. We need to talk. Now. Waylon sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. Eleanor, I know you're upset, but can we please talk about this calmly? Calmly, Eleanor's voice rose. You want to talk calmly after everything you've done? After lying to me and making up a story about me being terminally ill? Waylon looked away, unable to meet her eyes. I didn't know how to get out of the mess I created. Eleanor's anger flared. So you thought the best way was to keep lying? To betray both of us? Eleanor, please, Waylon pleaded. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. You already lost me, Waylon, Eleanor said, her voice breaking. The moment you decided to deceive me, you lost me. Waylon stood up, pacing the room. I never wanted this to happen. I love you, Eleanor. I made a terrible mistake. Eleanor crossed her arms, trying to keep her emotions in check. Love? You call this love? Love doesn't involve lying and cheating. You made a choice, Waylon. A selfish, hurtful choice. Waylon stopped pacing and looked at her, his eyes filled with desperation. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I can't imagine my life without you. Please, Eleanor, give me a chance to make things right. Eleanor took a deep breath, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. How do you expect me to trust you again? You didn't just lie to me, Waylon. You shattered our life together. Waylon's shoulders slumped. I know. And I'm so sorry. I wish I could take it all back. Eleanor shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Sorry isn't enough. I need time to think. I need to figure out what I want and what I need. Waylon stepped closer, but she held up a hand to stop him. Eleanor, please don't give up on us. We've been through so much together. Eleanor's voice was firm. That's exactly why this hurts so much. Because I thought we were stronger than this. I need you to leave, Waylon. I need space to think. Waylon's face fell, but he nodded slowly. Okay, I'll go. But please, Eleanor, know that I love you. I'll do anything to make this right. Eleanor watched as Waylon left the room, her heart heavy with sorrow. She sank into the couch, feeling the weight of the day's revelations. She couldn't believe the man she had loved and trusted for so many years had betrayed her in such a profound way. As she sat there, trying to process everything, Maverick's voice broke the silence. Mom, is everything okay? Eleanor looked up, surprised to see her son standing in the doorway. She forced a smile, but tears streamed down her face. No, sweetheart, everything is not okay. Maverick rushed to her side, wrapping his arms around her. Mum, what's going on? You can tell me. Eleanor took a deep breath, knowing she couldn't hide the truth from him. Your father, he hasn't been honest with us. He's been having an affair, and he lied about me being sick to cover it up. Maverick's eyes widened in shock. What? How could he do that? Eleanor hugged him tightly, drawing strength from his presence. I don't know, Maverick, but we have to face this together. We'll figure it out. Maverick nodded, his voice determined. We'll get through this, Mum. I promise. Eleanor held onto her son, feeling a glimmer of hope amidst the pain. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with Maverick by her side, she believed they could find a way forward. Eleanor took a deep breath, wiping away the last of her tears as she stood in the kitchen, gathering her strength. Tonight was supposed to be a joyful reunion with Maverick, and she was determined not to let Waylon's betrayal ruin it. She straightened her apron and returned to the living room, where Maverick sat, looking worried. Mum, are you sure you're okay? Maverick asked, his concern evident in his eyes. Eleanor managed a small smile. I'll be fine, sweetheart. Let's not let this spoil our time together. How about we watch a movie? Your favorite, maybe? Maverick hesitated but then nodded. Yeah, that sounds good. But Mum, if you need to talk. I know, Maverick, she said gently, patting his hand. Thank you. But for now, let's just enjoy the evening. They settled onto the couch, choosing a light-hearted comedy that Maverick had always loved. Eleanor focused on the screen, trying to immerse herself in the movie, but her mind kept drifting back to the earlier confrontation. She forced herself to stay present, laughing at the funny parts and commenting on the scenes to keep the atmosphere light. Halfway through the movie, the phone rang. Eleanor's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at Maverick, who paused the movie. I'll get it, she said, walking to the kitchen to answer. Hello, she said, keeping her voice as steady as possible. Eleanor, it's me. Waylon's voice came through the line, sounding desperate. Can we please talk? Eleanor closed her eyes, taking a moment to collect herself. Waylon, I told you I need time. Tonight is not the time to discuss this. Maverick is home and I want to focus on him. Please, Eleanor, just give me a minute, Waylon pleaded. I can't stand knowing you're so upset. Eleanor sighed. Waylon, we've said all we need to for now. I need space to think. We'll talk later. All right, Waylon said, his voice heavy with resignation. I'm sorry, Eleanor. I really am. She hung up the phone, feeling the weight of his words but pushing them aside. She walked back into the living room, smiling at Maverick. Just a wrong number, she lied, sitting back down beside him. Maverick eyed her but didn't press the issue. All right, let's finish the movie. As they watched, Eleanor's thoughts kept drifting. She remembered the early days of her marriage to Waylon, how in love they had been, the dreams they had shared. She couldn't reconcile that image with the man who had lied to her so profoundly. But she knew she had to keep her composure, for Maverick's sake. After the movie ended, Maverick stretched and yawned. It's good to be home, Mum. I missed this. Eleanor smiled warmly, feeling a surge of love for her son. I missed this too, Maverick. I'm so glad you're here. They said goodnight, and Eleanor headed to her bedroom, feeling the weight of the day's events pressing down on her. She knew she needed to rest, but sleep was elusive. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with thoughts of Waylon and the future. In the middle of the night, she got up and walked to the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water. She stood by the window, looking out into the dark, silent night. The betrayal cut deep, but she knew she had to stay strong for Maverick. She couldn't let this break her. As dawn approached, Eleanor made a decision. She would confront Waylon again, but on her terms. She needed to regain control of her life, to find a way to move forward. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she had Maverick's support, and that gave her strength. The next morning, Eleanor prepared breakfast, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. Maverick joined her, looking refreshed. Good morning, Mum. Good morning, Maverick, she replied, handing him a cup of coffee. I hope you slept well. I did. Thanks, he said, taking a sip. What's the plan for today? I thought we could go for a walk, maybe visit some of your favorite spots around town, Eleanor suggested. And then, later, I need to talk to your father. Maverick nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. Whatever you need, Mum. I'm here for you. Eleanor smiled, feeling a bit more at peace. Thank you, Maverick. That means the world to me. As they sat down to eat, Eleanor felt a sense of determination. She would face this challenge head-on, maintaining her composure and strength. For herself and for Maverick, she would find a way to navigate through this storm. Eleanor spent the morning with Maverick, taking a leisurely walk through the neighborhood and visiting some of his favorite childhood spots. They talked and laughed, enjoying each other's company. But as the day wore on, the impending confrontation with Waylon loomed large in her mind. She knew she couldn't avoid it any longer. After lunch, Eleanor sat Maverick down in the living room. Maverick, I need to talk to your father. This won't be easy, but it has to be done. Maverick nodded, his expression serious. Do you want me to stay? Eleanor shook her head. No, I need to do this alone, but thank you. Just knowing you're here helps. Waylon arrived home shortly after, looking weary and anxious. He glanced at Eleanor and Maverick, sensing the gravity of the situation. Can we talk, Eleanor, he asked, his voice subdued. Eleanor nodded. Yes, we need to talk. Let's go to the den. They walked into the den, the tension between them almost palpable. Eleanor closed the door behind them, determined to stay composed. Waylon stood by the window, looking out into the garden, avoiding her gaze. Waylon, we need to get everything out in the open, Eleanor began, her voice steady. No more lies, no more half-truths. I need to know the full extent of what you've done. Waylon turned to face her, his expression filled with remorse. Eleanor, I know I messed up. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why did you, Eleanor demanded, her voice rising. Why did you lie to me? Why did you tell Audrey I was terminally ill? Waylon sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. It started out as a way to avoid complications. Audrey and it was never supposed to be serious. I told her you were sick because I thought it would keep things simple, but it got out of hand. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Out of hand? You made me out to be dying, Waylon. You used me as an excuse for your affair. How could you do that to me? Waylon stepped closer, his face etched with guilt. I know, Eleanor. I know I crossed a line. I was selfish and scared. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't want to lose her either. I was a coward. Eleanor shook her head, the pain evident in her eyes. You didn't just lie to me. You betrayed me in the worst possible way. You made me doubt everything about our life together. Waylon reached out, but she stepped back, refusing to let him touch her. Please, Eleanor, let me make it up to you. I love you. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness. Eleanor's voice was firm. Love. This isn't love, Waylon. Love doesn't lie and cheat. Love doesn't destroy trust. You've broken something that can't be easily fixed. Waylon's shoulders slumped, tears welling up in his eyes. I know I've hurt you deeply. But please, give me a chance to prove that I can change, that we can get through this. Eleanor took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure. I need time, Waylon. Time to think, to process all of this. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, but for now I need you to leave. Waylon looked devastated, but he nodded slowly. If that's what you need, I'll go. But please, Eleanor, know that I'm truly sorry, and that I love you. Eleanor's voice softened, but her resolve remained. I need space, Waylon. I need to figure out what I want. We'll talk again, but for now you need to leave. Waylon turned and left the room, the weight of his actions heavy on his shoulders. Eleanor watched him go, her heart aching with the pain of betrayal. She walked back to the living room, where Maverick was waiting, his eyes filled with concern. Mum, are you okay? He asked, standing up to meet her. Eleanor nodded, though tears streamed down her face. I'll be okay, Maverick. It's just a lot to take in. Maverick hugged her tightly, offering his silent support. We're going to get through this, Mum, I promise. Eleanor held onto her son, drawing strength from his presence. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with Maverick by her side, she felt a glimmer of hope. She had faced the deception head-on, and now it was time to start the process of healing and rebuilding her life. The days following Waylon's departure were filled with a tense quiet. Eleanor focused on her daily routines, trying to find solace in the mundane tasks that kept her busy. She knew she had to make a decision about her future, and the more she thought about it, the clearer it became. One evening, Eleanor and Maverick were sitting on the porch, enjoying the cool evening breeze. Maverick had been a constant source of support, his presence comforting her in ways she couldn't express. Mom, you don't have to decide everything right now, Maverick said gently, sensing her turmoil. Take your time. Eleanor looked at her son, his eyes filled with concern and love. I appreciate that, Maverick, but I think I know what I need to do. Maverick nodded, waiting for her to continue. Your father broke my trust in a way that I can't just overlook, Eleanor said, her voice steady. I can't live in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. I've decided to end it. Maverick reached out and held her hand. I support you, Mum. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. Eleanor squeezed his hand, grateful for his unwavering support. Thank you, Maverick. It means a lot to me. The next morning, Eleanor called Waylon and asked him to meet her at the house. She wanted to have this conversation in person, to face him and make her decision clear. Waylon agreed, his voice subdued. When Waylon arrived, Eleanor met him in the living room. He looked tired, his shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of his actions. Eleanor, he began, but she held up her hand to stop him. Waylon, I've thought a lot about this, Eleanor said, her voice firm. I've considered everything and I've made my decision. I want a divorce. Waylon's face fell, and he sat down heavily on the couch. Eleanor, please, can't we try to work this out? I know I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I don't want to lose you. Eleanor took a deep breath, steadying herself. Waylon, love isn't supposed to hurt like this. You lied to me, deceived me in the worst possible way. I can't just pretend that everything is okay. I need to move on, to heal. Waylon looked at her, tears in his eyes. I understand, Eleanor. I do. But it doesn't make this any easier. It isn't easy, Eleanor agreed, but it's necessary. For both of us. We can't keep living a lie. Waylon nodded slowly, accepting her words. What do you need from me? I need you to respect my decision and give me the space to move forward, Eleanor said. We'll work out the details of the divorce, but for now I need you to leave. Waylon stood up, his face filled with regret. I'm sorry, Eleanor, for everything. Eleanor nodded, her expression resolute. I know you are, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. Waylon left the house, and Eleanor felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The decision had been made, and there was no turning back. She knew it would be a difficult journey, but she also knew it was the right path for her. Later that evening, Maverick found Eleanor sitting in the living room, looking thoughtful. He sat down beside her, his presence a comforting anchor. How did it go? He asked gently. It's done, Eleanor said, her voice steady. I've told him I want a divorce. Maverick nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. How do you feel? A bit relieved, honestly, Eleanor admitted. Sad too, but mostly I feel like I've taken the first step towards healing. Maverick hugged her, his arms strong and reassuring. I'm proud of you, Mum. It takes a lot of courage to make a decision like that. Eleanor smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. Thank you, Maverick. Your support means the world to me. As they sat together, Eleanor felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but with her son's support and her own inner strength, she felt ready to face whatever came next. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where she would rebuild her life on her own terms, free from deceit and betrayal. Months passed since Eleanor's decisive action to end her marriage. The initial pain of betrayal and the process of divorce were challenging, but Eleanor found solace in the support of her son and the small steps she took towards rebuilding her life. One sunny afternoon, Eleanor was in the garden, tending to her roses. Gardening had become a therapeutic escape for her, a way to find peace and beauty amidst the turmoil. She was deep in thought, humming a tune, when Maverick walked up, a bright smile on his face. Mum, guess what Maverick said? Excitement in his voice. Eleanor looked up, wiping her hands on her gardening apron. What is it, Maverick? I'm getting married, Maverick announced, his eyes sparkling. Eleanor's heart swelled with joy. Oh, Maverick, that's wonderful news. Who's the lucky girl? Maverick grinned. Her name is Emily. We met at work, and she's amazing. I can't wait for you to meet her. Eleanor hugged her son tightly. I'm so happy for you, Maverick. I can't wait to meet her and welcome her into our family. As they talked about the upcoming wedding, Eleanor felt a renewed sense of purpose and happiness. She was thrilled for Maverick and excited to be a part of this new chapter in his life. A few weeks later, Maverick introduced Emily to Eleanor. They met at a cozy cafe downtown. Emily was a lovely young woman with a warm smile and kind eyes. Eleanor could see why Maverick had fallen for her. It's so nice to finally meet you, Mrs. Bennett, Emily said, shaking Eleanor's hand. Please, call me Eleanor, she replied with a smile. I've heard so much about you from Maverick. They spent the afternoon chatting and getting to know each other. Eleanor was delighted to see how happy and in love Maverick and Emily were. She felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future. As the wedding plans progressed, Eleanor threw herself into helping with the preparations. She wanted everything to be perfect for Maverick and Emily's special day. It was a welcome distraction and a way to channel her energy into something positive. One evening, as Eleanor was going through wedding invitations, the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Waylon standing there, looking uncertain. Eleanor, can we talk? He asked. Eleanor took a deep breath and stepped aside to let him in. What is it, Waylon? Waylon sat down, looking around the house that had once been his home. I heard about Maverick's wedding. I wanted to say that I'm happy for him. And for you. "Thank you," Eleanor said, keeping her tone polite but distant. "Is that all?" Wayland sighed. "Eleanor, I know I hurt you deeply, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on my actions. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to apologize again. I truly am sorry for everything." Eleanor looked at him, feeling a mix of emotions. "Wayland, I appreciate the apology, but we've both moved on. I'm focused on building a new life for myself and being there for Maverick." Wayland nodded, sadness in his eyes. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I regret my mistakes every day." Eleanor gave a small nod. "Thank you for saying that. I hope you find peace and happiness in your life too." As Wayland left, Eleanor felt a sense of closure. She had faced her past and was ready to fully embrace her future. The day of Maverick and Emily's wedding arrived, and it was a beautiful, sunny day. Eleanor watched with pride as her son exchanged vows with the woman he loved. The ceremony was filled with joy and love, and Eleanor felt her heart swell with happiness. After the ceremony, Maverick pulled Eleanor aside. "Mum, there's someone I want you to meet." He led her to a man, standing by the edge of the dance floor. "Eleanor, this is Daniel. He's a good friend of Emily's family." Daniel extended his hand with a warm smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Eleanor. Maverick and Emily have told me a lot about you." Eleanor shook his hand, feeling a surprising spark of connection. "Nice to meet you, Daniel." They spent the evening talking and laughing, and for the first time in a long while, Eleanor felt a flutter of excitement for what the future might hold. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor and Daniel grew closer. He was kind, understanding, and supportive, and Eleanor found herself looking forward to their time together. It was a new beginning, filled with hope and possibilities. As she sat in her garden one afternoon, reflecting on the past year, Eleanor felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had faced betrayal and heartache, but had emerged stronger and more resilient. She had a loving son, a wonderful new daughter-in-law, and the promise of new love on the horizon. Eleanor's journey had been difficult, but she had learned the importance of self-respect and the power of moving forward. She smiled, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment. Her story was far from over, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next with grace and courage. A year had passed since Maverick and Emily's wedding, and life had settled into a new and fulfilling rhythm for Eleanor. She had found happiness and peace, rebuilding her life with resilience and grace. The garden she once turned to for solace now flourished with vibrant blooms, a testament to her journey of healing and growth. One sunny afternoon, Eleanor was in her garden, planting new flowers, when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Need any help with those?" It was Daniel, his warm smile lighting up his face. Eleanor looked up, her heart lifting at the sight of him. "Sure, I could use an extra pair of hands," she replied with a smile. As they worked side by side, planting and chatting, Eleanor felt a deep sense of contentment. Daniel had become an important part of her life, offering friendship, support, and a growing sense of love. He had shown her that new beginnings were possible, even after the deepest betrayals. After finishing in the garden, they sat on the porch, enjoying the afternoon sun and a glass of lemonade. "You know," Daniel began, "this garden of yours is pretty amazing. Just like you." Eleanor blushed, feeling the warmth of his compliment. "Thanks, Daniel. It's been my therapy, my sanctuary." He took her hand, looking into her eyes. "You've come a long way, Eleanor. I'm proud of you." Eleanor squeezed his hand, grateful for his presence in her life. "I couldn't have done it without you and Maverick. You both helped me find my strength." As if on cue, Maverick and Emily pulled into the driveway, waving as they got out of the car. "Hey, Mum." "Hey, Daniel," Maverick called, walking over with Emily by his side. "Hey there," Eleanor greeted them with a smile. "What brings you two here?" "We wanted to see you and share some news," Emily said, her eyes twinkling with excitement. Eleanor's curiosity piqued. "What news?" Emily exchanged a happy glance with Maverick before speaking. "We're expecting a baby." Eleanor's eyes widened in surprise and joy. "A baby? Oh, that's wonderful news. She hugged them both tightly, tears of happiness streaming down her face. I'm going to be a grandmother. Maverick grinned. Yep. And we couldn't wait to tell you. You're going to be the best grandma ever. Eleanor's heart felt full to bursting. I can't wait to spoil my grandchild rotten. As they all sat together on the porch, sharing stories and laughter, Eleanor felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her life had taken unexpected turns, but each twist and turn had brought her to this moment of joy and fulfillment. Later that evening, after Maverick and Emily had left, Eleanor and Daniel sat in the garden, watching the stars come out. It's amazing how life can change, Eleanor mused, leaning her head on Daniel's shoulder. A year ago, I never would have imagined being here, feeling this happy. Daniel wrapped his arm around her. Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? And you've shown incredible strength through it all. Eleanor smiled, feeling the truth of his words. I've learned that no matter how tough things get, there's always a way forward. You just have to keep going. Daniel kissed her gently on the forehead. And you did. You moved forward with grace and courage. I'm honored to be a part of your journey. Eleanor looked up at him, her heart full of love and gratitude. And I'm grateful for you, Daniel. You've made my life so much brighter. As they sat together, surrounded by the beauty of the garden and the twinkling stars above, Eleanor felt at peace. Her journey had been challenging, but it had also been rewarding. She had discovered her own strength and resilience, and she had found love and happiness again. Eleanor's story was a testament to the power of hope and the importance of moving forward, no matter the obstacles. She had faced betrayal and heartache, but had emerged stronger, ready to embrace the future with open arms. Her life was filled with love, joy, and the promise of new beginnings, and she knew that whatever came next, she was ready. The end of one chapter had led to the beautiful beginning of another, and Eleanor was excited to see where her journey would take her next. With her family by her side and a heart full of hope, she was ready to face the future with courage and grace. Let us know in the comments how this story has inspired you, or share your own experiences of overcoming adversity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching stories like this one. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest uploads. Your journey through the complexities of the human heart starts now. Remember, your story isn't over yet. It's just a new chapter beginning. Stay strong. Stay inspired.